Hello and welcome to the ChooseFI radio podcast. Today on the show, we are going to be discussing our takeaways on the amazing episode that we did this past Monday with Vickie Robin. If you have not yet listened to that, you simply need to do so. ChooseFI.com/070. We're going to be talking about our takeaways and feedback from the audience. Then we're going to open it up and we're going to bring in your questions, your ideas, your thoughts for the remainder of the Friday Roundup. And there's so much to cover. Wendy shares how she paid off $80,000 over the last year, transforming her journey to FI. Caesar shares an article with the community talking about these new programs that are popping up all over the country, basically offering you 1 year of college, job-ready training skills, and no debt. And then finally, David shares the impact that travel rewards has had on his life and his family's. Welcome to the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. This is your Friday Roundup.
You're listening to ChooseFI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. ChooseFI, your home for financial independence online.
Brad, I am very excited to get a chance to tackle all the different topics that are going to come up in this episode. But I know that you've had some big stuff going on in your personal life, and I'd love to hear what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I think my neck of the woods is actually kind of changing here, where we are actually moving. So it's not any kind of big life change as much as it sounds. We're moving like literally 2 miles down the road. But yeah, I mean, the house we've been in now for 13 years, we are leaving. It's kind of bittersweet, but we're excited for this new chapter in our lives for sure.
Maybe I just missed it. How many years have you been in your first home?
13. Wow. So yeah, my kids have grown up here and yeah, this has been our family home. But, you know, we talk on this podcast all the time about community, right? And unfortunately, the block that I'm on is just like one little cul-de-sac with 10 houses, and it's not really this community that we want our kids to grow up in. So we had kind of been eyeing this one particular neighborhood, basically like right near our kids' elementary school. And we weren't in the market per se. Like it wasn't like we're getting our house ready to sell and getting ready to move. It was nothing like that. It was just, if the perfect house comes on the market, then we'll consider it. I think that was kind of how Laura and I have lived the last couple of years, basically. So it was never like a pressing thing, but this house came up on the market. It's this beautiful house. We're really excited about it. It's a little bit bigger, so it's not the ultimate FI play, but it's not dramatically more expensive. And the biggest thing is that within like 15 houses on either side of us, I think we have 7 different families that are friends of ours, including like my younger daughter, Molly. One of her best friends is 3 houses over. Anna has a good friend right across the street. I mean, literally across the street. So we think it's going to be a really nice lifestyle move for our entire family for years and years to come. And it's a big thing, but we're excited about it. Well,
the big question is, are you still going to have access to the pool?
Well, that is a great question. I don't think we would have moved if we didn't have access to the pool.
All right, man. Well, congratulations. I'm excited for you. And yeah, I mean, from an opportunity cost perspective, I think, one of the things I've heard, and I can't confirm this, but it's if you're going to be in a home, because of all the transaction cost, it's if you move every, 5 years or so, you're just getting crushed. But 7 years appears to be kind of like that break-even point, and you guys have been there at 13. So it still would be very curious to run the math on rent versus buy for you over the last 13 years. But I'm sure from the perspective of cost of doing a transaction at 13 years, you're still doing okay.
Yeah, I hear you. And that does kind of tie back to the Big Earn episode. And I definitely intend to do that. This kind of threw a monkey wrench in there a little bit. So I think that's why I've been dragging my feet as far as getting that analysis together with Big Earn and presenting it to the community. So I do intend to still do that. But yeah, forthcoming for sure. And yeah, amidst all this kind of crazy moving, which is actually for me, it's going down next week, is we have ChooseFI in Mid-Atlantic in Virginia here this coming weekend, which should be absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's coming up Friday already.
Are you freaked out you're going to lose your voice again?
You know, I kind of am. Now it's becoming like a psychological affliction now. I'm a little worried. I was actually thinking about that before. I'm like, oh, it's just going to be my luck. I'm going to get sick or something. And as you probably know, I'm like the most positive minded person. Like I try to stay positive as often as I can. But for some reason, I have this nagging doubt that I'm going to lose my voice.
Oh, man, I'll be sending positive vibes your way. That's awesome. You'll be fine, dude. You'll be totally fine. But I'm really looking forward to it. So JD actually messaged me. He's in Tennessee right now. He's heading this way. And he's actually bringing one of the board games that I introduced him to at the last ChooseFI. And he was telling me I don't need to bring it. So I'm going to have to look for a couple others to bring. But he's pumped. I'm pumped. We're going to play some board games at ChooseFI Mid-Atlantic, and it's going to be amazing. It is a fantastic time. I wanted to say this. That one is completely sold out, obviously, but there are 2 left for the remainder of the year. There is one in the Southwest. That is in Joshua Tree, California. That is going to be from August 3rd to August 6th. And then there is one in the South in Little Rock, Arkansas. That is going to be September 7th through the 10th. And I don't expect either of those to have ticket availability for much longer. So I would highly encourage you, if you're interested in something like this, to go ahead and get your ticket as soon as you can, if that is something that interests you. We have worked with Steven to put all of the events on one page for you. You can get all the information at ChooseFI.com/ChooseFI. And I know at least for that Southwest location in Joshua Tree, California, Paula Pant from Afford Anything is going to be a featured speaker, along with Gabby Wallace and Scott Trench. You guys know what big fans we are of Scott Trench from Bigger Pockets. That is just going to be an awesome, awesome event. So hurry up, go ahead and get your tickets. I'm sure they're not going to last much longer, but it's a great time. I mean, it really is a great time. You don't realize how stuck in your grind and your routine you are until you actually get a couple days to get out of that and go spend some time with some like-minded individuals. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's going to just be a great 72 hours this coming weekend. I can't wait. And you were talking about board games, and that's just one of many things that we do. Obviously, there are some presentations, but that's a small fraction of the time. But it was so cool to see on the private Facebook group that people were talking about setting up runs and bicycle rides and calisthenics in the morning. And it's just really, really cool to see people coming together. I know I'm actually carpooling out there with a bunch of people. I'm picking up people on the way. And it's just like a nice community event. And yeah, I mean, we've been talking about that for over a year now. And yeah, I mean, if you're interested in joining one of these events, there are 2 left, as Jonathan said, in 2018. So yeah, ChooseFI.com/CampFI to find more info.
Oh, and one more, I guess you call this housekeeping point. So you guys know that I went ahead and set up the Skinny Waist Fat Wallet Challenge, where I am actually going to be losing approximately 20 to 25 pounds over the next 12 weeks. Instead of just telling you how it went, I'm actually documenting it and turning it into a YouTube series. We released the first video, the day 0. Man, it's kind of painful to get this thing started. You always want to go to the finished product, but I think there's value in someone actually doing it right alongside with you. And there's this kind of fear of, will it work? Will I be able to pull it off? Will I just abandon it halfway through because I get burned out? And I was convinced that more than anything, this sort of accountability, this sort of public accountability will keep me tied to this challenge over the next 12 weeks and give this thing legs so I will get the results. If you want to see that first video, love your feedback, love for you to get involved with it. And honestly, we'll try to incorporate some of your feedback into the show. Just go to ChooseFI.tv, and you will see that playlist at the top of our YouTube channel. But that has just been a lot of fun to put together, and the first video has officially been released.
Yeah, and you talk about radical transparency. I'm really impressed, honestly, Jonathan, with what you put together. I mean, you are doing this, and frankly, you're being really vulnerable. I mean, you said you have 20 plus pounds to lose, and you like literally take your shirt off. Like, you're documenting this process along with the community. And I think that's a really cool thing. And I'm excited to see where you take it. And of course, I certainly want to be involved, but I know this Skinny Waist Fat Wallet is definitely kind of your thing. And hopefully it really takes off in the community and we get some feedback and comments on the videos and such. It should be fun.
Dude, if I don't pull it off, I'll be so angry with myself. So yeah, I am going to pull it off. This is going to absolutely happen. You're right. It puts you in a very vulnerable position to share your before pictures before you've actually pulled it off, right? I mean, if you've got the after pictures right next to it, then that's something. But yeah, this is definitely a journey, and there's really no shortcuts to this. It's kind of obvious stuff. But anyways, I'll save all that for the YouTube series. Go check it out. Let us know what you think, and bear with us, as this is literally the first YouTube video that we have ever made. So lots of fun stuff. Love for you to be a part of it. All right, man, that's enough time with this. Let's go ahead and talk about this past week's Monday episode. It was so powerful.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, to have Vickie Robin from Your Money or Your Life on our podcast, it's kind of a surreal experience. And she was amazing. She really was. I mean, my wife, Laura, absolutely loved the episode. And she was joking. She's like, I think that's the least that you and Jonathan have ever talked on a podcast. It was like 2% of the time you guys and just 98% of the time Vickie. And she really brought it, right?
Yeah, I did. I forced myself to be quiet. I was like, do not interrupt her. There is nothing that you have to say that is better than anything that she is going to say. Just be quiet and listen.
But yeah, I mean, she has powerful, powerful messages. And I love just something as simple as reframing, making a dying. It sounds hyperbolic when you hear it, but when you really think about it, making a living just doesn't make sense, because that's what we've talked about forever here, is that most people work so hard, so many hours to afford the finer things in life, right? But they can't enjoy them because they're working all the time. It's this like horrible, I don't know, catch-22 paradox, whatever you want to call it. And you truly can't enjoy it because you're working all the time. So her reframe of that, of making a dying, that really hit me. And she said that her and Joe really wanted to help those people that had a sense that there was more to life than just that 9-to-5 grind. And I think that is a powerful modern day FI message. That is our message. There is more to life than, oh, what do you do? How many times have you heard that at a party? What do you do? As if your job was all that made up who you are. I mean, that's a preposterous thing. And hopefully people in the FI community understand there is so much more to you. There is so much more to life than just your job. And sometimes it's those little reframes that make all the difference.
Honestly, Brad, one of the things in their book that had the biggest effect on me, and it's an ongoing theme in my life, is the idea of the true hourly wage, and basically how unaware we are of the value of our time. And I thought, she did this great job blending this example of this employee that's making this really good salary, $60 an hour, but not being aware that they have to really factor into that the overtime, the time that they're putting in to do the job when they get home, the time that they're just still thinking about the job after they leave, the time that they're having their recovery time before they can even interact with other people, the professional outfits that they have to wear that they spend thousands and thousands of dollars a year purchasing in order to be able to maintain that level of appearance, the societal pressure to join the different clubs, the commute, the time it takes to get to your job, the hour there and the hour back. All of that has to be incorporated into your hourly wage. It's incredibly powerful. And she says, you can pick holes in all of these models, but if you just look at this as a way to reframe your reality, you realize that your most precious resource is your time. And then that quickly allows you to reallocate your priorities. It'll change the decisions that you make almost overnight.
And like you're kind of alluding to there, the exact numbers and the exact calculation we couldn't get into that precisely, obviously, on the podcast, though she tries significantly in the book. But it's more just that reframe of really all this stuff does factor in and you don't consider it. You just don't. Even like you said, the decompressing time, that never would have even crossed my mind. But I mean, that is time that is really allocated to your job, no matter how you want to look at it. Once that aha moment has been had, that is time that you wouldn't be spending if you didn't go to that 9-to-5, then obviously it's included. The travel to conferences, things like that, the expense, the professional education, like all this stuff that like you just don't even think about, it has to factor in and has to factor in to what your actual hourly wage is. And she said across all the different studies she's done and different people she's seen that it's somewhere around a quarter to a third of what you thought you were actually making per hour. And that is really astounding. And then, of course, the natural progression from that is, okay, every purchase that you're making, well, I don't think necessarily most people go out to dinner and say, oh, it's a $60 dinner. I make $60 an hour. This costs 1 hour of my life force. Like, I don't think many people are actually having that thought. But man, if you were, and then you realize, oh, I'm only making $15 an hour, this one dinner out just cost me 4 hours, a half of a day. Well, that's a pretty stark example. So I think it's a reframe, most importantly, for people who have never thought this way. But even if you're somewhat loosely aware, it really does buckle it down to, wow, I'm only making a tiny fraction of what I thought I was. So maybe these purchases should be thought more thoroughly.
Yeah, I mean, let's take an extreme example, though. Let's say you calculate your hourly rate and it goes down from, $30, $40 an hour, something like that, down to like $12 an hour, anything in that range, or $8 or $6 an hour, something, really ridiculous. Now you start looking at these higher end purchases like that 70-inch TV. I was going to say plasma, but I think that's like almost 10 years ago now. That's like how behind the times I am. But you buy that, 70-inch TV, or you get that $6,000 all-inclusive vacation or something else like that. And it, if you're basing it on your initial hourly rate of $30, $40 an hour, you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's like 3 or 4 days of my time. And that's great. But then you base it on your true hourly rate and you realize that you are giving up 6 months of your life and your life energy to make this purchase. And then you're like, that's insane. Maybe there's a way that I could do this a little bit more smartly. Heck, maybe I could just use travel rewards, to pull this off for free and I could reclaim that. In my mind, Brad, what we have stumbled upon with our iteration of this is trying to incorporate all these other life hacks to give you some of the best of both worlds. You still get all the experiences, but using this idea of value, using this idea of your life energy being the most precious resource that you have. How can we do this more smartly? More smartly? Is that a word? Is that a phrase? I think I just made it up, but we're going to roll with it. And I just, I love how she incorporated this so naturally. And it's incredible that long before I knew who Vickie Robin was, I was using this type of language just because the people that I found out about FI from were inspired by her. It just passed through, it's just, these ideas are so incredibly powerful and addictive. And once you see it, it's very difficult to unsee.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think kind of what you were talking about there is something that we need to reiterate more often is that FI is this total life optimization strategy. And sometimes there are really essential tenets of it. And to me, this is one of them, that you are giving up your life to earn this money. And therefore, when you spend it, that is life energy that you're spending. So I know it's kind of weird to put into those words, but it is important. And it's important that you internalize that, right? So if that's a fundamental underpinning, then you think about purchasing decisions differently. You just do. And with that total life optimization strategy, it's not just about the nuts and bolts. Like we've talked forever on this podcast, 100 plus episodes. It's not just the nuts and bolts of personal finance. It's a little bit about everything. It's happiness, it's community, it's fitness, it's health, it's relationships. Obviously, it's the money. It's a side hustle, right? It's all these things that we're trying to learn. And that's kind of what we're doing here with this podcast, bringing on all these various guests. And you'll start one week, right? You'll have Vickie Robin, who is one of the pioneers of financial independence, talking about these essential underpinnings. And then the prior week, we had Michelle from Making Sense of Sense, who talked about this incredible side hustle that she built, that she's making. I think I just saw her income report, and last month she made $240,000 in 1 month. Those are not totally different messages. It's all part and parcel of this larger strategy of there are lots of different levers to pull, as Jonathan always says. You just have to choose which ones work for you and take action. That is what we always talk about here. You have to take action. You cannot just passively take in content. Sure, it's great if you listen to our podcast and plenty of other ones, but you have to get up off the couch and take action. And we see that every week in the Facebook group and with voicemails and emails. You guys are doing that. Just continue to do so. That is what FI is about to me.
And when you were talking about community, man, being a part of this, Lauren actually said, I was lucky to grow up on the island where Vickie currently resides. Her comments about how everyone shares and helps out are so true. And then Joel said, I love the way that you, Brad, rephrase the purchase questions from Amazon to anything. So in our hot seat, we used to say, what's the best thing you purchased on Amazon? But Brad, I know you made a very intentional decision to move from just some maybe gimmicky question about what you purchased on Amazon.com to talking about a purchase that you made that had value for you. And I thought that, I agree with you. It has so much more depth And it imparts so much more meaning when you talk about someone like Vickie Robin, who gave away $1 million in profits to basically charity groups to help people get their financial ground game in order. And what did she actually purchase? What is bringing value to her life? And for her, it was this essentially camper that allows her to have this community with her friends.
Yeah, it's neat. And that kind of talks about the fulfillment curve that she talked about, which I know you want to talk about in depth here. And it's about that point of enough. What do you get value from? And what does that look like as you're basically sliding up this fulfillment curve? And how do you know when you're on the other side? And as she said, everything you buy behind your enough point is just clutter. And that was a really powerful point to me. I made sure I wrote that down because, that just stuck out. Everything you buy beyond your enough point is just clutter.
I've heard a lot of people saying that you're never going to get rich being frugal. In fact, it was something that was quoted on a show that I was on recently by one of the other people on the panel. And, I can see where they're coming from. I can see them saying that you're never going to pinch pennies and get rich. But I think what they're missing in there is that you get to enough long before you get to rich. And while I have nothing against getting to rich, I think if you can pull it off, that is amazing. And I think there are plenty of ways to do it. And I'd like to share them with you and discover them myself. But I think that you can get to enough very easily by just being intentional. That is a powerful, powerful message. And there's an opportunity cost to getting to rich. How many people work decades longer than they need to in jobs that they don't enjoy so that they can be quote unquote rich, when in reality, the richness doesn't dramatically change their life in any way. In fact, it creates new problems for them. My favorite thing was what Frugal would say. I just want to get to the point where money doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me from a scarcity mindset, and it doesn't affect me from having so much of it that the way I interact with people is incredibly jaded. That is exactly my thoughts on the matter as well. And so there is, this fulfillment curve from the perspective of stuff. And I'll be honest with you, of the two of us, Brad, I'm the one that has the predisposition to struggle with knowing when I've gotten to clutter. I have an eye for gadgets. I like, the newest gadget, tech toys, that sort of thing. But there is a point in time where you don't even want to go in the room because it's kind of overwhelming. All the stuff that you've acquired, it's probably a pretty good sign that you have moved into clutter.
Yeah, I agree. And what's funny is I know I mentioned at the outset of the podcast that we're moving, right? And I'm getting to see firsthand as we pack up our house what our clutter looks like and what our lives look like, what we've purchased over the years and how it's accumulated. And I'm going to say this kind of jokingly, and I can't wait to hear what my wife says when she hears this, but we are definitely better than probably the majority of similar suburban families. Like we don't accumulate a ton of stuff in the grand scheme of things, but that's not the comparison that I want to make. I'm never trying to compare myself to the person next door. I compare myself to my goals and my ideals. We still have accumulated a significant amount of stuff. And this is a nice opportunity to kind of come up with a structure. And we've donated just so many items. We have this amazing Goodwill, just like a mile down the road where they have like an 18-wheeler, Jonathan. It's the coolest thing ever. Like from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m., every day, they have this 18-wheeler open there where you can just donate whatever you want. And I've been there more times than I can count. And you got to see like the smile on my face when I come back from this Goodwill. It's like, it's just so great because I know I've decluttered a little bit and I've donated, I've done something good in the world. It's just this win-win. And yeah, it's a neat feeling.
Let me ask you, with the new tax laws moving the standard deduction up to $24,000 and it being very unlikely that you're going to itemize based on donations at this point, are you still like asking for a receipt and tracking everything that you do? And I only ask that because I know it slows down the process dramatically. Or at this point, are you just literally taking it there and leaving?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think just out of habit, we have been picking up the donation form and just kind of jotting down what we've donated. I mean, we're not like going through calculations at that moment, but I think if it ever came to it, Laura would go in and jot down approximate prices and value and things like that. But as of now, yeah, we are picking up the receipts just because I'd hate to need it. By some free chance, if we do itemize, I'd hate to need it and not have it, right?
Totally off topic, but I was just curious.
No, it's a good question. It really is a good question. But yeah, it's funny, like as we're making this move and we have pared down, I mean, probably 25% of what we own is just been gotten rid of, which is kind of cool. It enables us to come up with this structure for our new place. And we are going to try to not let clutter overtake it, to actually be intentional. It's almost like that discipline equals freedom thing that I always talk about with Jocko Willink, is like, once you've set up a structure for, okay, as silly as this sounds, like library books go here. We probably have 70 library books taken out literally at this moment. Jonathan, I kid you not, 70 books. Because I went through, and I'm a crazy person. Like, I went through our 4 different accounts and I hunted through the house to get them all in one pile, just so I was sure that we had them all. So like, I know it's 70.
All right. So are you going to stay with a straight face that you have not paid any late fees over the last, 4 months? Can you honestly say that right now?
I think we're under like $1 or so. And I think those might have been intentional decisions from Laura to like, hey, I have to read this book. It's worth to pay the 10 cents and bring it home bring it back a day or two late. We haven't lost any books. We haven't done anything like that. But the cool thing is now we're going to have a bookshelf just for library books. So again, it's like that discipline equals freedom, as opposed to having 70 library books strewn throughout a house. We now have this nice built-in shelf that we can put them all on. And it's like, you set up a structure, then you don't have to take an hour searching through your house to find all these things. And like, obviously this is much more important with needing to run to the store, or, hey, we're out of this. Let's take a run to the store and buy a deodorant or a shave gel or something. Like, that's 20 minutes out of your life because you didn't have structure. And I know I'm kind of getting off topic here, but I think this is an important message. So many of us, we just lose time because we don't have a plan. Whereas if you had some order to your life, you would know when you're getting low on X item that's essential. And the next time you're at the store, at your own leisure, you buy it. That is a message that I really think will help people. I legitimately do, because I know it's helped us, and it will help us even more as we move to this new, slightly better and more optimized structure.
And you know, Brad, while I want to applaud you for getting rid of clutter and trying to be more organized going into the future, I'm aware, like increasingly so, that clutter and this kind of consumption problem that we talked about is overwhelming our planet, like in a very scary way. I saw an article on CNN. It was released, I think, on March 23rd of 2018 this month, basically saying that there is a huge swirling pile of trash in the Pacific Ocean that is now 3 times the size of France. 3 times the size of France. That's not hyperbole. That is, like, as seen from a satellite right now, a island of floating plastic and debris. That is insane. That it just shows that we as a society are out of control. And honestly, like, I'm the last person to even bring this sort of thing up. I'm shocked that I'm the one actually saying this on this show. If you use the word climate change, for instance, it's a very political term that really triggers people in different places, one way or the other. You know, people say it's subjective, people say it's reality, you can't deny it. But what you cannot debate, what you absolutely cannot disagree with, is that right now there is a pile of trash in our ocean that is 3 times the size of the country of France. That is terrifying. And what does that mean as exponentially we start producing more and more, and as a society we start consuming more and more with no thought into where the packaging goes afterwards and what is actually being packaged? These disposable water bottles that get tossed, all these sorts of things. What does it look like when a society runs amok without any sense of societal responsibility or global responsibility for this waste problem? And what they actually say right now is that our landfills, our waste fills, they are not degrading trash like they're intended to. And actually, they're preserving stuff. And so they can actually find newspaper clippings where you can still read the print that are over 80 years old. And so this isn't going away. This isn't a problem that's going to solve itself. And to me, I'll be honest with you, this was a reality check for me that permanently changed my worldview. And my wife just said to me the other day, wow, you're really becoming very radical on this as I'm trying to figure out what to do with, every single piece of packaging that comes to our home. What's the best way to do it? That sort of thing. It's because I'm realizing more and more that at a personal level, I don't want to be contributing to this problem. And at a global level, this is not something that an individual can solve. Personal responsibility will likely never get us there. And so in that regards, I find myself agreeing with Vickie. Now, I will say that, like, Brad and I have from day one tried to have an apolitical show. We actually disagree with each other on, at least initially, we thought we disagreed with each other on a lot. But I think that, as an individual that's taking personal responsibility, that's focusing on intentional living, you suddenly become more and more aware of the little things that are destroying this wonderful place that we all have to live for your kids and your grandkids. And you suddenly become more and more involved. I have a 1-year-old. I want him to have an ocean and clean water so that he's not drinking little micro parts of plastic and whatever horrible results that'll have on his outcome. I want a safe world for him to grow up in. And I don't know what it looks like, but for me, this article, which I'll link to in the show notes, was a giant wake-up call that this thing isn't going to solve itself.
Yeah, I kind of echo what Danny said, actually. I've been amazed. Like, you probably brought this up to me like 3 or 4 times in the last week or so. And it just seems to have really hit you at like a really deep personal level. And yeah, I think it probably has a lot to do with your son and the world that you want to leave for him. So I've definitely been surprised and impressed that this has hit you at such a deep level. And yeah, just kind of talking about the apolitical nature of ChooseFI, I think it's really important. You and I have set out from the absolute word go that this show will never be about politics. It'll never infect the show in any way, shape, or form. We stick to that and hold to that. And I think the main reason is we want people to find common ground. We don't think much, if anything, that we talk about here is really up for this horrible debate over, other than good-natured, of course, oh, we shouldn't put all our money in VTSAX or we should have it in bonds. Of course, there's always room for debate about intelligent things. But unfortunately, so many times in society, people just argue for the sake of arguing against the other team, right? Or the other tribe, or however you want to look at it. And that is not what we want here at ChooseFI, and it never will happen. So please know that that's kind of the background of how we look at this. But of course, we always respect our guests. Obviously, it's no secret where Vickie is coming from on the political spectrum. I think it's just obvious when you hear her talk. But I think her points are really essential. And I was so impressed with how our Facebook group handled what could have been a combustible thing, right? We had a comment somewhat about politics and Vickie's episode, but it never devolved like it would on so many other places on the internet, cesspools, that just turn into vile and hate-filled language. It was very respectful. It was even, we saw so many that were, I don't think I agree with Vickie's politics, but I loved her message and I'm going to go buy her book. That is a very, very powerful statement. And that takes a big person, especially in this day and age where we are so quote unquote polarized, to actually step back and say, wow, Vickie has something to add to my life. I might not agree with her on everything, but the important stuff, I do. To me, that is a really, really powerful message.
There were a couple things that came to mind, and I'll just be honest up front. I don't agree with all of Vickie's politics. We just don't line up on the same page, but I do see common ground there. And I think one of the places that Vickie's coming from is she sees this incredible value to college. Historically, college meant that you were going to earn substantially more money than someone that didn't go to college. So if that's your perspective, I understand why you think that college should be a quote unquote right for everybody. Everybody should do it. But I don't think that college has the same value now that it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It is rapidly changing. And we are moving into this new economy where it's not what degree do you have. It's almost like the bachelor's degree has become the new high school diploma already. It's what have you built? And I just think that we're all grappling with this new reality. We're still trying to figure out how to get college for as low as possible because right now that's the best possible solution. But I think more and more of us are finding out that it is truly what have you built that's getting you the job. And so I don't think the answer is that everybody gets college as a free right, as a guaranteed passage at super low cost. I think what that does is that just speeds up the train to just basically permanently devalue the bachelor's degree altogether. And it'll just mean nothing. It'll mean all of us are essentially in high school for an additional 4 years. If that actually is where it is. And what employers will start to do, since everybody has that degree, now everybody has to do grad. We've just kicked the can down the road. So while I think Vickie's heart is totally in the right place with a lot of these programs, I think the reason that this is so appealing to us is we're looking for smarter ways, of doing this all together, Brad. And I just don't know, maybe for your kids when they're going to college, this still is the play. But for my 1-year-old right now, when he's 18, I have significant doubts about whether or not college is going to be the answer for him.
Yeah, and I don't know what it's going to look like when my kids go to college. I mean, my older one is 8 years out a whole lot can change, obviously, in nearly a decade. And I'm pretty scared about it. I don't know that college necessarily is the answer. But if that is still the societal norm, it's pretty hard to buck that trend on a personal level. So I'd like to think that we're going to be able to employ a lot of the strategies that we've talked about here on ChooseFI with second generation FI and college hacks and AP tests and CLEP tests and all these things. And assuredly, we will get better information over the next 8 years. But yeah, I don't know what it's going to look like. And yeah, that is a big unknown for sure.
Brad, let's explore this just a little bit further to understand, where we're coming from. I think that part of this went to, historically, your identity has been your job. But when we're talking to the FI community, you're talking about potentially just a 10-year working career. I mean, a 10-year working career, and you can get to a point at which 10 or 15 years get to a point at which you've reached financial independence. If you're talking about second generation FI, it may even be shorter than that because they have this ground game in place at such a young age. So what you're talking about is you spend all this time, in school learning to read, write, and basic learning type skills. Then you get to high school, you get your 4 years in high school, and then you get to college. Now you have 4 years in college. Now you finally have your degree and you're paying off your debt for 4 years. And now you're in this job and you're trying to crush it, and then you're trying to get out as quickly as possible. Like, I don't know, like that speaks to opportunity cost. Like, what does it look like to do this with a little bit more intention? And if we're saying basically all you need to do is hit a median income and then have a solid ground game at the beginning, it opens up so many more options. And what we're finding is now, as there's this increasing push over the last 15 years for everybody to go to college, there's created opportunities, right? There's created gaps in other industries, including all these trade schools. Honestly, if you're only looking at doing a profession for 10 years, if you can start the profession at 18 years old and be done by 28, like I'm just graduating at 28 years old with $168,000 in debt, you'd be getting out. And I can actually point now to practical examples of people that have basically pulled this off. Gwen left her job. Fiery Millennial from Fire Drill Podcast left her job before the age of 30. She's just done. Sun Wu in our community has been pursuing this extended degree. I have a feeling that he's not going to last in that particular program very long. I spent 12 years, pursuing pharmacy, and then I found something I was passionate about and moved out. If you only need to find something that you enjoy for a 10-year period of time, and you find that there are all these opportunities that don't require a 4-year degree, because your timeline is so compressed with how long you need to work, I don't know if college is the answer for everybody. And I suspect that is the answer for far fewer people than you initially think, if you think that everybody has to go to college.
Yeah, and that concept of opportunity cost is so important. And really, for many people, they just don't think about it, right? You think, oh, I'm going to go to college, 18 to 22 for most people. Even if you come out with little debt, if you were lucky enough to have saved up some money or had parents who paid for some or all of it, well, that money was still paid. You still could have started at 18 with a job earning some amount of money, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, who knows? And you aren't then sending $50,000+ out the door to some private school. So, I mean, that's actually close to $100,000 swing for each year of college. If you talk about the full opportunity cost of not only are you not paying for college and room and board, but you are earning an income. So the swing is much larger than just, oh, this is what I paid for college. All right. So that's an important point. And yeah, Jonathan, I never thought about that. You came out of pharmacy school at 28 without 10 years of potential earnings, your foregone earnings, plus all the money that you spend. I assume it was more than the $168K. That was just your debt, but that probably wasn't necessarily all the money you paid for all those years of schooling. So that opportunity cost, whereas compared to like Scott Trench, who, albeit he did go to a 4-year school, but his net worth in his mid to late 20s is in the many hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So that's positive as opposed to your negative $168K. That is an amazing swing.
And every dollar that you earn in your teens, every dollar that you earn in your 20s is so much more valuable than a dollar you end in your 30s and your 40s. This is the lost decade for so many of us that we're trading for a perceived benefit that doesn't show up on the other side. And honestly, if Vickie writes another update in a future year for Your Money or Your Life, she's missing something in the true hourly wage. What did not get calculated into that is the point in time which you start earning, that if you had made a more optimized choice that offered even a lower salary, but you got got it at an early age and you didn't have to go into debt to get it, it's more valuable. Every dollar that you earn is more valuable if you earn it sooner with less debt incurred. I mean, this is radical stuff, but if you latch onto it and you realize, I mean, it just opens up the world, opens up so many more options. And we're not just going to leave this here. We are actually going to bring on people that can highlight these different paths. We're going to be talking with Ryan Carson from Treehouse in a couple of weeks here about this incredible program. Basically, it's a year of education. It's going to cost you about $1,000, and you're going to be able to get out and make a median $50,000 a year income. It's incredibly powerful. We're going to bring on Captain DIY. He got into college, was in a fantastic program, but saw the opportunity of pursuing a trade and left and is just crushing it. So this is not a fantasy that I'm just imagining. This is reality. People have latched onto this, but when you tie it back to the life optimization, I'm telling you, the strategy for your kids, that most optimized path with everything that we're talking about in the show may look radically different from this perceived path that everybody has to take. Everybody has to go to college. I don't know if that is still a universal truth.
Yeah, in this day and age, you can learn just about anything online. I was recently reintroduced to the website Khan Academy. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's KHAN, Khan Academy. And it is the most remarkable self-learning site that I've seen. I mean, my daughter is in 4th grade now, and I don't know, she's a pretty good math student. She wants to kind of get ahead by, I don't know, a year or two. She has these crazy goals that she sets in her head. And she came to me yesterday and said, Daddy, I want to learn more advanced math. And I swear this is like an actual conversation from my 9-year-old, which is insane. I realize how fortunate I am here, but I'm like, all right, well, the best place that I know is Khan Academy, and let's just sit down. And basically if she wanted to, and she was capable of, she could go through college math just right there at Khan Academy for free. I mean, how freaking cool is that? That is just astounding. And she's starting at a 5th grade level, and she literally can go through all the videos, all these questions, assess where she is, and just kind of move from there at her own pace. It doesn't have to be there's a class of 25 kids and you have to go to the pace of the slowest kid. It's your pace. This is a new world. You don't need these degrees anymore saying that you have X learning. It's obvious. Again, we have that guy Ryan Carson coming on soon, and Treehouse just sounds like this cool platform. This is one of many, so we're not trying to plug that in particular, but you know, and potential employers know what your skills are because they're right there on paper. You prove them out. To me, that's how the world should work. And it shouldn't just be some nebulous, oh, I went to college and passed for 4 years, so that means something. Well, I don't know if that means something or not, but I can tell you for sure that if you go through Treehouse and you can show your coding abilities, that the proof is in the pudding. It's right there on paper. If my daughter can go through and pass all these Khan Academy math lessons and get to a 9th grade level by the time she's in 6th grade or something crazy like that, well, that's the level she's at. She's not at a 6th grade level anymore. And like, to me, that's how we should approach learning and skill acquisition. Going back to what Vickie said about universal healthcare and about free college, and I'm sure many people listening kind of recoiled because that's not their view of politics or how the country should work, et cetera. But I take the reframe from the FI perspective, which is what we've been talking about forever. We've had so many voicemails and so many questions about healthcare and college. We intelligently know that there are major issues here, right? There's $1+ trillion in student loan debt. There are healthcare costs that are just astronomical, especially if you want to get to FI and not have a full-time W-2 job. We know there are problems. I think that's the common ground point is we know there are problems. And the way that I look at the world is I want to help solve problems how I can. I don't know if the answer is universal healthcare and free college, but I'm not closed-minded to anything. I like to explore and try to find out what works. And I think that's the message that I want to get across is if you reflexively heard that and said, oh, that's awful, I couldn't possibly agree with this. Well, just take a step back and just be open-minded and say, all right, what can I agree with? I can probably agree that there are problems with both of those major parts of American society and the American economy. How can I, as an individual and as a member of the FI community, as an American or whatever, wherever you are, how can I help improve that, right? So that's my message is reframe it, with common ground and how can I help?
But this was the more powerful part of that, in that people in the FI community, because they have figured out how to get out of the grind, they have the bandwidth to solve problems. That is what we're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if essentially over the next 5 to 10 years, you start seeing outsized influence from people in the FI community that are dedicating their free time to solving problems. Gosh, I wish somebody in this community could solve the trash problem in the Pacific. That would be amazing. This is your passion. And this is something that you've been researching. And now you have the bandwidth because you're not trying to figure out how to keep the lights on for your family. You figure out what an efficient recycling program would actually look like at a global scale. That would be amazing. And healthcare. This is something that Kevin in our community is coming up with a solution for. In fact, I know he's doing a webinar. It's incredibly limited. There's only 50 spots, but he gave me permission to go ahead and plug it on the podcast. I'm going to set up the link. ChooseFI.com/healthcare. It'll take you to where you can watch this webinar that he's presenting. It's going to be on Saturday, April 14th. I'm telling you, the first 50 of you that RSVP, you'll get a spot, and he can determine based on how much extra interest there is whether or not to do a second one. But I mean, people are wanting to solve problems. We realize that now that we have figured out a way to, solve our own financial game, we're figuring out how we can give back. There is no they. There is you. And if all of us assume that someone else is going to take care of something, then we've seen how that story ends itself. So these are sorts of powerful things. And I love this idea of people believing that they can make a difference without knowing proof of concept, without knowing for certain what the outcome is going to be. They're willing to put in their time and their energy and their resources into solving the problem. Go to ChooseFI.com/healthcare, RSVP for that event. I would love to see you there. And I think it's going to be incredibly valuable. That's going to be on Saturday, April 14th at 6 p.m. It's a 1-hour webinar. That's at Mountain Time. So I'm sure you can go to the Facebook and it'll allow you to add it to your calendar. But that's going to be something, that's just another example of what this looks like and how motivated this community is. I truly believe while Vickie Robin had the attention of half the world, at one point in time by being on all the daily shows, she was still at a disadvantage because she didn't have her own platform to get this stuff out there. She didn't have social media ready to share this with people that were of like minds. There was no way to coalesce around it at a national scale. And now that she's rejoining this movement in 2018, I truly believe that this is a movement. It's not a subculture. It is a movement. There's a reason that you're seeing 25% growth month over month because it's such an obvious choice. When you wake up from the matrix, you can't unsee the difference that it has on your life. Why wouldn't everybody choose this? It doesn't make sense. And it just needs, the messaging has to be right. And I hope that's what we're contributing to in our own small way. And talking about seeing the matrix and being able to change on a dime, we had this post in our Facebook thread from Wendy, and I had to give her a shout out from this. She said, thanks to Brad and Jonathan for this group and this podcast. Just about 1 year ago is when I first found the podcast. And it seems so cliche just to say it changed my life, but it's the honest truth. In May of last year, after binge listening all the episodes, my husband and I decided to change our lives and put a plan in place to pay off all of our debt. We had a negative net worth in the 6 digits a few times over. Thank you, student loans. And we decided to commit to serious savings so that we could realize our dream of retiring early, something that we previously thought was impossible. We were going to grave with the debt. I just updated our information quarterly for my blog. And since yesterday, at the end of the first quarter, and I went over the numbers, I knew we had been hitting it hard, but I just didn't have really any idea of the total progress. The math doesn't lie. $86,346.46 in overall gains in 10 months. This is simply incredible. I can barely believe it myself. We're going to link to Wendy's blog in the show notes for today's episode. And I know that one of the things that she did, in particular, Brad, she absolutely crushed her grocery bill. She went to Aldi's, and I'm telling you, I've been doing this myself for the Skinny Waist Fat Wallet Challenge. It's impossible to spend $100 at Aldi's. I kid you not. Like, I filled up my cart the other day and I got my receipt. It was $33. I was like, my mind was melting. That's how crazy it was. I asked Danny to guess like lowball what it would be, and she overshot it. Like, it is, if you can get these little things in place, these small wins, it motivates you in every single other aspect. She's in our San Diego group, and I know that she's even done some presentations at this point. Like, she is all in, and the difference that it's going to have on her family in just a very short period of time, their 10-year future selves are just thanking them. Thank you. Thank you. And Wendy, thank you so much for sharing it with us and with our community. We're blown away.
Yeah, Wendy, that is amazing. Simply incredible is the words you use. And you and your husband here were simply incredible. I mean, $86,000 plus in overall gains in 10 months. That is taking action, right? That is the epitome of it. So a huge, huge congratulations to you.
And speaking about incorporating all these different life optimization strategies, travel rewards, we got this message from David. He says, I want to thank you both for introducing me to travel rewards through ChooseFI. My wife had breast cancer several years ago, had treatment and reconstruction. The reconstruction was causing her problems, and she found a group of surgeons in New Orleans who perform a pioneering reconstruction surgery using the woman's own tissue. While the surgery itself is covered by insurance, we had to travel to the Big Easy twice and stay there in a hotel for 10 days. Through travel rewards, the total cost was only a couple $100 rather than a couple thousand. We even used our Chase card to pay for the surgery, and we're reimbursed with our Flex spending account. We have enough points left over that this summer, my son, who has been a bit distant this year, and I are going on a free flight to Kansas City, Missouri, attending a Friday night Royals baseball game, staying in a free hotel room, then hopping on Amtrak, $22 each, to St. Louis, where we will be sightseeing, then attending a Father's Day baseball game in St. Louis before heading back to Tampa with a free flight. Total trip cost about $75 plus game tickets. Anybody know a hack for that? If you two ever wonder if you're making differences, trust me, you are in my life. Thanks again, Dave. So these are the little things. Like, Brad, all these things seem separate, and people have latched onto individual things, but you got to put it together in a game plan. And these aggregation, these little hacks over and over again, it just blows the whole thing up, and you realize this just got easy.
Yeah, it really is. It's these little pieces, but yeah, when you put them all together, it's huge dollars, and it's a change in your life. So yeah, Dave, that is awesome, and neat to get to go down there and see some baseball. I love that. We are very happy that our Mets are now playing. So yeah, this is a good time of year. Early April is when baseball starts, and it just kind of seems like this fresh outlook on life. So yeah, good stuff all around.
Caesar in our Facebook group posted an article talking about how these 1 year of colleges, programs are popping up. They don't give you a degree, but you don't have any debt, and you basically get the job skills. This is essentially what we were talking about with these types of trade schools that are opening up. It's the same idea, but this was picked up, I believe, by the Wall Street Journal. So mainstream press, not too far behind us on this when they're starting to get a sense that something's shifting. So we've been trying to continually make it easier for you guys to listen to the ChooseFI radio podcast. And Chip from makemeaskill.com has been helping us create a skill in Alexa. Skill is basically a way of saying that if you have an Alexa or an Echo device, you can just very easily give a voice command to your Alexa or your Echo, and it will pull up the ChooseFI radio podcast. So anyways, he gave me an update. There's some new skills that have been added. Just wanted to let you know what's going on behind the scenes.
Hi, Brad. Hi, Jonathan. This is Chip at MakeMeASkill.com. Couple quick notes. First, I wanted to let you know that we've had quite a few listeners start to use the ChooseFI Amazon Alexa skill. One listener has even provided a very positive review on Amazon.com. I also wanted to let you know that I've made a few updates to the skill. Previously, to play past episodes of the podcast, you needed to specify the date of the episode or the episode number. In addition to finding past episodes by number or date, now you can find past episodes by specifying a word or phrase from the title. While there are many ways to engage the ChooseFI features, the easiest way to search for or find past episodes is to start the skill by saying, Alexa, start ChooseFI. This will get the device thinking about ChooseFI actions. As soon as the device glows blue, which means that she's listening to you, just say, search for, and then any word or phrase. A couple examples or searches to try after the skill is engaged. Try saying, search for insurance, or search for side hustle, or search for board games. In addition to the new search capability, ChooseFI is now available on Amazon Alexa devices in Canada, Australia, India, and the UK. I've also made the skill able to read blog posts and articles. Also, if ChooseFI listeners would like to help ChooseFI get more visibility in the Amazon Alexa library, they can help by rating the skill. Just go to Amazon.com. In the search bar, type ChooseFI or MakeMeASkill.com, and then rate the skill and or add a review. One final note. If you play this audio note on a podcast, I apologize for potentially triggering listeners' devices. In the future, I'll refer to her as Madam A when I provide an update on new features for this skill. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.
Oh, I'm definitely sure we triggered Alexa. That is awesome. No, Chip, thank you so much for that voicemail. I actually know that we have a fair number of podcasters that listen to our show, and I highly encourage you to hook up with Chip if you want him to create a skill for your podcast, just because he's so good at it and he just does it so seamlessly. So a huge thanks to Chip at makemeaskill.com for setting this up for us. And then for our community, this is just one of those things. How can we make it easier? You know how many times that we get a message saying, what was the episode that you talked about rent versus buy-in? This is, now that Chip has solved this, you can literally just set this up through your Alexa or your Echo, and it can make this a seamless process. I mean, that is incredible how technology can be used to do this now. And to be honest, when you send me that message, I have to really think through the notes, and I'm going to ChooseFI.com. I'm going to the search bar. I'm trying to find, all right, what episode was that? But I think Chip basically has just solved this for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Madam A too. That's hilarious.
It's in the lexicon. All right, guys. Well, unfortunately, that's going to bring this episode to a close. Now, as you know, we like to finish every episode by doing a drawing for a copy of a book that we have found useful. We have 3 books that we are always recommending, and it is The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins, Design Your Future by Dominic Cortuccio, and Freelance to Freedom by Vincent Puglisi. Now, if you want a chance to win one of these books, all you need to do, just go to ChooseFI.com/iTunes. Follow the written instructions there. Leave us a short written review, and then send us an email to feedback@ChooseFI.com, letting us know that you left a review and what the screen name you left it under. On that same page, we also have a link to Stitcher. So if you go to ChooseFI.com/iTunes and you're like, I don't use iTunes, well, we have a link to Stitcher, and you just click on that link. It'll take you there. You can leave the review on Stitcher as well. Either of those will work. Anyway, send us that email with the screen name you left it under. And then every week on the Friday Roundup, we announce the winners. We give away 1 book for every 5 written reviews that we get. Brad, how many winners do we have today?
All right, Jonathan, we have 1 winner today, and the winner is Casey. And Casey called this the Best 5 podcast. ChooseFI is a great podcast. I've been interested in personal finance and financial independence for a long time. I read lots of blogs and have listened to various podcasts over the years. ChooseFI is the only one that I've listened to all the historical episodes because they're so fun and informative. I'm a finance and tax law geek, but tax gain harvesting never really clicked until I listened to their roundup episode on the topic with episodes 18 and 18R. I enjoy the broad range of topics and intensities they highlight and discuss. They don't just focus on a one-size-fits-all approach to financial independence. Start from episode 1 and you won't be disappointed.
And can I make one extra little pitch on this? Guys, we're at 987 reviews right now. I mean, that's like 13 away from 1,000. If you've been listening to this and you've been meaning to leave us a review, but life just got in the way, take a second this week, leave us a written review. It is a huge help to us, and it would be insanely awesome to hit 1,000 reviews on iTunes. That is such a small percentage of podcasts that reach that landmark. We would be so grateful if you would take a time out of your week to do that for us. All right, guys, if you got value from today's episode, take a second, press the subscribe button on the platform you're listening to this on. Just lets the providers know you're getting value from the show and you want to be here when we produce additional content. The fire is spreading, my friends. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to ChooseFI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.